Hey guys, Alex from Kingsway Church here again, bringing you the next video in our broadcast mixing series for churches. So in this video, we're going to cover the bass and guitars a little bit. For this particular one, and probably going forward, I switched to a different recording. Just another Sunday that our church did. Just some of the electric guitar parts and acoustic was recorded a little bit better on this one, as well as the bass and just some stuff that I just wanted to change it up, and just kind of give you a little show real quick that switching to a different Sunday, even though these are different instrumentalists and different vocalists, this template still kind of works out. Once you get your template dialed in, this should kind of be the same. I didn't really have to tweak this a whole lot in between the two recordings. I was there pretty quickly. Did have to make some changes, but nothing too crazy. So I'll just play a little snippet just so you can hear the entire recording, and we'll go from there.
Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ. Oh, by your Spirit, let's sing it out. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory.
Alright, so that's just a little snippet there of what this recording sounded like. Again, these are all raw audio tracks recorded straight into Logic from our front of house console, untouched before hitting this template, to kind of give the same emulation as if the tracks were just coming in live. So as you can hear how I had everything balanced, it's kind of what we want to go for on a Sunday morning for us. Might be different for you guys. So let's go through here on the bass. You saw me kind of checking a couple things. I think the meters, like the gain reduction meters in Studio One, can sometimes get a little bit crazy when there's like a noise reduction plugin and stuff like that. I was just making sure things weren't super compressed, which they were not. So let me solo the bass just so you can hear what that sounds like. So you can hear it has like a nice tight low end to it. It's not super crunchy, but it does have some dirt to it, which will help it stand out in the mix a little bit, especially the people that are watching at home on a phone or on laptop speakers or something like that. I could go in and push the bottom end, but again, nobody's really going to hear that watching this stream. So let's start off. So again, with the Schoeps Omni channel. So pretty much all of my tracks all start with either the Schoeps Omni channel or the SSL channel. That's just kind of a good, it gives them a little bit of an analog feel. And just, that's kind of a good starting spot because it has everything I need in it. So some of the tracks that don't need a ton of processing, this is all you'll see on the track. So I'm starting here, doing a little bit of that's where a lot of this dirt is coming from, this saturation here. I'm using the heavy setting, just pushing that a little bit just to give it some of that dirt. Now with the Schoeps Omni channel, I'm using a de-esser, which for some of you would think, why would you want to use a de-esser on bass? And the reason for that is because with this de-esser in particular, there's two bands, and you can set them to whatever frequency you want. You can have them be more wide, more narrow. You can have it do like a shelf on either end. So this is more of like a multi-band compressor, really, in terms of how you can set it instead of just thinking of it as a de-esser. So for the bass in particular, I'm pulling some of this like farty string noise type stuff around 1K. just kind of ducking it once it really, like, when they're really starting to dig in, that's when you'll notice that getting ducked out. And then just some of this mid-range, this, kind of 360, just kind of boxy, that's not really helping anybody out. Just kind of pulling some of that out, but as you can see, it's all kind of moving as they're playing. It's not just an EQ cut. Just kind of helps everything kind of stay fluid. I like doing a lot of dynamic processing, so it's not just, just doing cuts and whatnot. You'll see that when we get to the vocals later on, especially because the bass is such a dynamic instrument. I'm doing a little bit of compression here. I have another compressor further on in the chain, just to kind of have two compressors doing a little bit of work instead of having one compressor doing a ton of work. Just tends to give it a little bit more of an even compressed sound, doing a little bit of EQ in here, a little bit more tone shaping with the Pro EQ, taking out some of the boxiness in the mid-range again. Using the API 2500. I love this plugin for bass. As you can see, I have the attack set pretty fast because I'm really trying to even out the bass and keep it pretty tight. Because the bass is so dynamic, you have that initial attack that's happening, and then you have all of that sustain on the low end. So just kind of trying to make them a little bit more even. So when a bass player has a particularly more aggressive attack, this just kind of evens it out with the low end a little bit more. So I really like what this does on bass particularly. And then I'm using an NS1 just for some noise reduction. The way that our bass is set up, for whatever reason, it just tends to add some noise that I don't care for. In the Pro EQ too, I think on the Sheps, I'm taking out a lot of the top end, pretty much everything over 4K. There's really nothing being added from the bass at that point, except for noise and hiss and stuff like that. So just trying to combat some of that, in the mix here. So that's it for the bass. Let me go into our electric guitars here. So I'll start with the lead. So I'm not doing a ton of processing, as you can see here. It's just using the Sheps. I'll turn it off and turn it on just so you can hear what it's doing. It's doing a little bit of compression. It's taking out a good amount of the low end that I don't really need on an electric guitar, especially when they're playing lead. You'll hear some of the overtones when I turn it off start to come back through, that are just kind of noise. They're not actually adding anything to the guitar sound. And like I said, just doing a little bit of compression and again using that de-esser trick to kind of tame some of the frequencies a little bit. So I'll play this and then I'll turn it off. So you really hear that's off there. You really hear all that low end noise kind of come back in. It's just, a lot of people wouldn't cut that much low end out of their guitars, but again, for me, it's not really adding anything to the mix that's useful, and it's just kind of muddying things up, so taking that out. And then for the rhythm guitar, just kind of doing the same thing. I took a little bit even more like low mids out of this one, just because this particular guitar player just had more low mids, and it was a little darker, so I actually added in some high end. Or added back some of the high end that I would take out typically with a lead. Pretty much like in that 5K area, the guitar starts to get pretty like buzzy, and it's just not like a great sound, especially for worship. So I'll turn this one on and off again too, so you can hear All right, so you can hear how that instantly cleaned up. And again, it's about fitting into the mix better. Some people might want that a lot more of that low end, which is fine. And, for different genres that might work out. But for us and fitting in this mix, it really kind of made more sense to take a lot of that out. I'll play both of these together real quick just so you can hear how they work together. I'll turn off all of their Sheps omni-channel. So you can hear how that really just cleans that up a lot. And as far as balancing the guitars, really kind of making sure whoever's leading is more on top. These kind of look a little out of balance just because the gain structure is a little off on these tracks, so I apologize for that. But typically, the lead would be sticking out a little bit more. The rhythm's kind of driving more in the background a little bit. So we'll move on to the acoustic. All of our acoustic players tend to have very bright acoustic guitars, which is why you'll see we're taking out a decent amount of high end from a lot of this. But I'll turn these plugins off again and I'll show you what it sounds like with the processing and without. Now, again, some of you might think that that's too dark, but again, it's about fitting in the mix for us, which taking out some of that top end really helps it do. So just starting with the Sheps, doing some of that de-essing again to take out some of the harshness on the top end. Pro EQ, just doing some tune shaping, and then the CLA 2A compressor is just, kind of, you can hear how aggressive some of that strumming is, that just kind of reins it in a little bit. So that's it for the guitars. I will show you the buses real quick. So we have an electric bus, a bass bus, and acoustic bus. Now I know some of you might be thinking it doesn't make sense to have a bus for the bass because the bus is only one instrument. What are you bussing together? So for me, it's just about the consistency of the routing and the way that processing works, to have everything hit a bus first and then everything goes out to the mix bus. So just to keep that consistency, I have everything hit a bus first, even if it is just one instrument. Even in this case, the acoustic, being that there's only one acoustic, is still hitting a bus by itself. So as far as the blending goes, the acoustic guitar, we really kind of want to sit back a little bit in the mix. It's more there for to add some rhythm, some texture. A lot of people tend to keep the acoustic guitar really loud in the mix, so that'll sound like So we tend to have it more like in this range. So you can still hear the strumming, but it's not like pushing forward. If you're at a different church, you might want the acoustic more pushed forward. But for us and stylistically, we tend to keep it sitting back a little bit in the mix. And the guitars, the electrics is just kind of balancing, between who's playing lead and who's playing rhythm. And it's about knowing the songs too. If the song's more acoustically driven, there's parts of this song, Resurrecting by Elevation Worship, where
Resurrected King from the ashes of
at a part like this, where it's mostly just acoustic and vocals, I want that acoustic a little bit higher.
In your name I come.
So you start to come back and bring it back a little bit. But again, for the electrics, it's just about knowing the song and knowing when there's a lead part coming in. There's a part coming up here where the electric kind of, not like a solo, but there's a little instrumental break here. Now Now, if you don't know the song, you might not know that that's coming. You might still have the electric down here, and then it sounds a little empty. So again, that's just about knowing the song. I would say that your sound techs would be just as much considered a member of the worship team, the worship band, as they are a part of production. So I would encourage all of my techs and your techs to spend some time learning the songs and knowing when certain things are highlighted, and just about keeping things like distraction free and stuff like that, especially now that a lot of people are watching from home with the pandemic still kind of going on. That makes this a little bit more important, just kind of keeping that distraction free thing going. So that's all I got for guitars and bass. Make sure you check out the first couple videos in the series so you can see how we set things up and go through our drums. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment on the video or any of the videos, or send me a message, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. And that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.